how do I picture aging research at the moment? Aging research, I would say, a coming of age, coming onto its own. So that image is a good metaphor maybe to think about gerontology in Africa, how we can anticipate the future. There's a bright future for aging research because it's needed. I immediately think in terms of what Beckert said. It is the images of the future that shape the present decisions. So, and the metaphor that resonates with this is the image by Osborne Macharia, the image of his 4 Mahadi ladies. Osborne is a visual artist, a photographer, and he's one of the leaders of the Afro-African futurist movement. And we work together at the Weltkulturen Museum on a project. So they are these circumcises of young female girls, and they changed their ways. And now, with these very same girls that they would have circumcised, they are now training them as entrepreneurs, especially in the fashion industry, especially identifying these wonderful African textiles and so forth. Osborne reflects in this image an older woman, or 4 older women, so with agency. They're able to change their futures, they're able to change their ways. So the emotion that these images creates in my mind is one of strength, one of contribution, one of possibilities, one of agency. And that's what we hope for older people, in Africa. They are making huge contributions with regard to care for younger generations, financial contributions, contributions to economies. So, this whole change in future of what Africa could be, not only for older people, but also for young girls, these linked lives. So that image is a good metaphor maybe to think about gerontology in Africa, how we can anticipate the future and how anticipation can move to emergence. How do I picture aging research at the moment? Aging research, I would say, a coming of age, coming onto its own. We had the first generation of aging in Africa researchers. They've kind of decked the table, laid the table for the field to be developed and so forth. We, as second generation researchers, explored, concepts, more ideas around specifically social protection, care. A next generation, I think, should expand on this, and as I said, towards a homegrown gerontology, and specifically around homegrown conceptualizations, for example, on ageism. we will have to go beyond extrapolating, past trends with regard to conceptualizations we have in Africa, to really think new about concepts like retirement, concepts like ageism, concepts like social protection, and so forth. We have to think about homegrown ideas around care and not necessarily institutionalization. Of course, we have to build capacity for the third generation of aging in Africa researchers. I think the challenges with regard to aging in Africa research relate to the multidisciplinary nature of the research and whether structures are in place to facilitate these multidisciplinary projects. We are conducting research on aging in the youngest region of the world. So that intergenerational aspect of the research, I think we can't escape that. And of course, we firmly believe that investments in youth and young people and their development, and that's hugely important, of course, on a young continent, should not detract from also investments in older generations. So the whole idea of linked lives, so investments in linked lives, also investments with regard to research. And then, if I may add a third one, also the intersectoral project. So that academics and researchers could and are able to translate their evidence into policy, into practice, and vice versa. So that practice and policy could inform the research agenda. I think those are the challenges for the future. I think the prospects for research on aging in Africa, also policy development, also programmatic development, these prospects are huge. It's expected that the current more than 70 million older people that absolute number will quadruple within the next 30 years to around 230 million. So the huge absolute numbers will urge us, and it's an imperative that we, on all levels, research, policy development, programmatic development, initiate projects and programs, and so forth. So the prospects are huge. So they are there. The challenge is whether we will grab those opportunities. The most obvious one, to study aging on a population-wise very young continent. That is an ambiguity. But there are ways to get around it, as I mentioned, linked lives, the life course, what you invest in younger people, you will later reap in later life. So there are ways to get around it, but these ambiguities should be addressed in creative ways. I'm very optimistic about aging and aging research. Why? Because there's this amazing policy development in Africa around also aging issues. You know, as recently as April this year, the AU plan on aging, strategy on aging, was approved by the ministers of the AU. That is so positive. That gives such a huge, wonderful, positive signal. Of course, it's very aspirational. But it's an aspiration for the future, very much like Osborne's imaginary future older women of the Mahadi. So one day they will change their ways. And I guess with this AU policy, we envisage a life of dignity for older people, with as departure point their human rights for each and everyone, so that they will be cared for, so that they will have social protection. I'm hugely optimistic about the third generation of aging researchers, our amazing students, from looking into the long-term care economy, asking the question, how can the needs of older persons be met through care by also addressing the needs of young people regarding unemployment and so forth? How can we upskill younger people to meet the needs of older people, the care needs? There's a bright future for aging research because it's needed.